Welcome to Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. On this podcast, we journey through the devastating experience of the death of a child. Grief is seldom discussed openly in our culture, and the death of a child makes people feel even more uncomfortable. We approach the topic openly and honestly, speaking to people who have lost loved ones and experts who help care for them. Whether you are a parent experiencing loss or someone who wants to support another going through this tragedy, this podcast strives to offer hope and help.
Welcome to episode number 319 of Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. I'm Marcy Larson, Andy's mom. Today, I have the pleasure to introduce you to Lisa. Lisa is Libby's mom. For all of my listeners in the UK, Libby's story may sound familiar, as it really did make national news. That certainly adds levels of complexity to Lisa's grief, as she had to grieve in the public eye as well. But I know all of my listeners are really going to appreciate hearing Lisa and Lisa's story and hearing all about her amazing Libby. I also have a sponsor for this week's episode. This week's sponsors are Sarah and Craig. They are sponsoring this episode in memory of their son, Tom. They are also from the UK, so I guess this is an All Things England episode. I did want to read a little bit from the email that Sarah attached to this donation. She said, "I'd love to sponsor an episode in memory of our amazing son, Tom. He left this earth on October 19th, 2024, so we're approaching the end of the first year without him physically here. The year seems to have gone by in a blur. Sometimes it feels like yesterday, but at other times it seems endless. Your podcast has been a light shining in the darkness during this time in our lives. We so appreciate you and the work you are doing. God bless you." Thank you so much, Craig and Sarah, for sponsoring this episode. Again, if you would like to sponsor an episode in your child's name, you can go to the website, andysmom.com, and go to the donate page. I also want to take a minute to talk about Starlight Ministries. So I've talked a lot about Starlight Ministries in the past. They are a ministry here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It's a faith-based grief support groups. They do a lot of work with children here in town, but now we have virtual support groups, and I have been facilitating virtual support groups through Starlight for quite some time. Now I just facilitate one of those groups. It's on Tuesday mornings at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. But they also have groups on Monday evening at 6:30 p.m. Eastern and also on Tuesday evening at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Many of the participants in all three of these groups are listeners to the podcast, and several have also been on the podcast and shared their stories. I just think it is an amazing resource, and it offers such a sense of community. I don't know where I'd be without Starlight Ministries, so I strongly recommend it. I'm making this announcement today because new groups are starting up. We are going to have our new session that will be starting the second week of November. So if you have interest in joining one of those existing support groups, please feel free to go to starlightmin.org to find out more information. You can also directly email Chris, CHRIS, at starlightmin.org to find out how you can register to be a part of this next series. This one will be the one that takes place right before the holidays, so it's just 4 weeks. So if you want to try it out and see what it's like, this would be a great opportunity. As promised, I'm also going to talk about that next live stream that we have coming up. So it's getting closer, only about 10 days away now. So that next live stream with Gwen will be on Monday, November 3rd, this time in the afternoon. So at 4 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time. I was realizing that will actually make it so Lisa and Sarah could listen to, because it's, of course, 5 hours later in the UK, but that's only 9 o'clock in the evening, so that's not the middle of the night like those live streams have been in the past. So maybe we'll get some of our listeners from the UK joining in. But I promised to give you another question to think about and answer. And so question number 2 is, are there some feelings that you keep hidden that you don't want, and you don't have to share what they are, but maybe why? Maybe why you have kept them hidden from other people. So if you have answers to those questions, you can email me at marcy@andysmom.com. And of course, we look forward to hearing many of you give those comments live as well. And you can go to my Facebook page, Gwen's Facebook page, hopefully the Instagram page, and definitely the YouTube page for just to be involved in the live stream. Right now, I just want you to sit back and listen to Lisa, Libby's mom. Thank you so much, Lisa, for coming on the Always Andy's Mom podcast today.
Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Oh, I am looking forward to hearing all about your daughter, Libby. So I guess that's how we should start out. Just start out by just telling us all about Libby.
Okay, Libby was, or is, the first of our 4 children.
Uh-huh.
She was the first granddaughter, first niece, first baby on all sides. So it was really exciting. My husband and I had been together for 8 years when we had Libby. I was 27 when I had her. I met Russell when I was 18. And then we lived together for a long time. And then actually 2 years before I had Libby, I had a miscarriage, which was an unexpected pregnancy. So it was tough, but it wasn't planned. So it was a very different feeling.
Sure.
It kind of pushed us into getting married a bit more quickly than we were going to, because I wanted to have a baby. And, so we got married in 1996, and I got pregnant. I was pregnant on our first wedding anniversary. And at 10 weeks, I started bleeding again. And I'd lost the other one at 10 weeks. And I was like, oh, here we go. And it was such a strange thing, because my friend had just gone through a really messy divorce, and she got tickets to go and see Celine Dion at a concert. It was literally that Saturday that I'd started bleeding. And I was like, well, I can't get into the doctors until Monday. And, am I going to get to see Celine Dion again? And I thought, I'm just going to go and see what will happen.
Yeah.
Went to the doctors on the Monday morning, and they just said, no, we think you probably had a twin pregnancy and you've lost one. So, and then kept Libby. So, yeah, so she was born on January the 1st at 11:11 a.m. So she was all the ones, the first of the first at 11:11.
What? Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Really special. Really, really cool. She was a big-ish baby. She was the smallest of my babies, but she was 8 pound too. So she was, she was squodgy and had this perfect round head, which was really gorgeous. And because it was a holiday here, nobody works on New Year's Day, we had so many visitors in the hospital. And I remember the last one going home, and Russell went home about 10 o'clock in the evening, and then I was just left with the baby. And she looked at me. She had really big blue eyes, and she looked at me, and I swear I heard her voice, and she said to me, "Oh, you're my mum." And I heard this voice, and I thought, and I looked at her, picked her up and put her on my chest. And that's where she stayed for the next 7 years. She didn't sleep in her own bed. She slept with us. Yeah, she was a beautiful baby, such an easy baby. I went back to work when I was working as a nanny at the time. She was 3 weeks old, and we went back to work full time. So she had a ready-made family. She had the children I was looking after were 2 and 4. So she had a big brother and a big sister before she even, when she came back to work. And yeah, life was lovely. We had a really good time, and she was such an easy child. She just, as long as she was, with you, I mean, she stuck to me like glue most of the time. She loved to read books. She loved to draw and paint. And yeah, it was just a really easy baby, and she was really friendly, and she got on with everybody as a baby and a toddler. Yeah, and then it came to going to preschool. And so she was 3 when she started preschool. That wasn't so easy, because she realised that mummy would go home and she didn't want to be left.
Oh, dear.
So we came up with a plan that I would leave her with something of mine. So sometimes she said to me, "Can I have your car keys?" And I'd have to leave my car keys with her and walk home. But she knew I had to come back to get the keys.
Oh, right. Okay.
And there were some days she'd say, "Mummy, I want your jumper." So I'd walk home in my T-shirt, and it was freezing. But that made her stay at preschool, and she was happy with that, and she always knew that I'd come back to get her, and it worked for us.
That's a really lovely idea. I've not heard that before, but super smart.
It worked for us.
Okay, I'm going to use that, just so you know.
It was brilliant.
I'm stealing that from you as a pediatrician.
Yeah, it really worked.
Because obviously I have kids that have that struggle.
Yeah, and they have that connection. They have your smell on your jumper or what have you, and it's just, she just loved it. That's what she needed to do. Yeah, so she was good. And then when she was 4, it was Christmas Eve, and I had my second daughter, Beth, and
Wow, you just have babies on holidays, don't you?
I've got 3 Christmas babies. My other one's March. But yeah, we had 3 Christmas babies. But yeah, I had Beth, and Beth was, Libby adored her from the minute she was born, she was. And then she got to about 10 days old, and Libby said to me, Mummy, when is this baby going to go away? And I said, no, darling, she's here forever. And she went, oh, and she sort of rolled her eyes. And it was like, oh, really? But she was a great big sister. They had such amazing fun together.
So what was she, about 4 then? Is that how
Libby was 4 when I had Beth.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. And then 4 years later, we had Maisie. So Beth was 4 and Libby was 8 at this point. And Libby was, again, an amazing big sister to the 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, life was nice having the 3 of them. I knew I wanted more, but we weren't planning it. And then I found out fairly quickly I was pregnant with my son. So he was born 18 months later. He was born on December the 7th. He was a bit early. And so we had 3 girls and a boy. And Joe, who's our son, he had 2 mums. He had me and he had Libby.
Right. Because Libby was, what, 9.5?
She was 10. She was 10, yeah, because
10, yeah.
Yeah, Joe was born December the 7th, and she was 10 on the 1st of January.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, so he had 2 big sisters. He had 3 big sisters and 2 mums. But yeah, he adored her, and she adored him. They had a really special bond, the 2 of them.
I bet they did.
Yeah, and it was just lovely. The 4 of them got on really well. Beth said to me a couple of months back, actually, she said, Mum, we had a really weird upbringing. And I said, no, you didn't. Because I stopped work when I had Beth, so I was at home with them all. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, well, we never argued. They never had those siblings screaming, shouting, slamming doors. We've never had any of that. And they got on really well. They were all really good friends. So yeah, it was just a nice, normal, easy, quite traditional upbringing. My husband went to work. I stayed at home with the kids, and we just had fun. Yeah. We just had fun. It was great.
Isn't it funny that Beth thought that it was weird? Because you get so ingrained that that's what it's supposed to be like. A lot of arguing and fighting and all that stuff. I mean, we just never had that either. I didn't have that growing up. I didn't have that in my house really either. So it's funny that that's perceived as what normal is.
Yes.
Makes me sad, actually.
It does me. And I've always, I'm fairly flexible with rules. I didn't much to a lot of my friends' disgust, and definitely my mother's, I didn't have a bedtime. They went to bed when they were tired, but it was usually around what would be bedtime, if you see what I mean. So I did it all very naturally. I didn't force anything really. If they wanted to eat, they ate, and if they didn't. I was very laid back about everything. But the only rules I had were that we treated everybody with respect and kindness. So if you wanted to borrow somebody's T-shirt, or if you wanted to play with someone's toy, you said, one of your siblings' toys, you said, can I play with that, please? And if they said no, they said no. There was no, and it was no for a reason, not no for being just difficult. And they just had that respect for each other. Literally up until when Libby died, they had genuine respect and genuine love for each other. Yeah, it worked really well for us. It wouldn't work for everybody, but it worked for me, and it worked for my kids. So,
well, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I loved it. It was a busy household, always busy. There was always somebody running here or taking there or picking up from this club, or, it was very busy, but it was fun.
I would think so. Yeah. Yeah, you had a lot of going on for sure.
Oh, yes. And we were the house where there was always friends in, playing, and, my friends would come around with their children. It was a busy house.
That sounds
beautiful. It still is, to be fair. It still is, yeah.
Yeah, right. Because you still do have your son at home, right?
Yeah, all 3 of them are at home.
All 3 of them are at home?
Yeah, Beth's nearly 24, Maisie's nearly 20, and Joe's nearly 18. So they're all here. We have a boyfriend that's living with us as well. So Maisie's boyfriend lives with us. And then every other weekend, Beth's boyfriend comes and stays. And then she goes hit there the opposite weekend. And Joe has his friends in and out. It's great.
Still a busy house.
Yeah, it's what keeps it alive, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, do you want to talk a little bit about what happened to Libby? Because it's a horrible story overall.
Yeah. I mean, Libby and I were incredibly close.
Yeah.
Incredibly close. She would, text me in the morning to say good morning. She'd ring me then a few hours later to say, oh, hi, Mum, I'm going to do this, this, and this today. Then she'd ring me in the afternoon to tell me what she'd done and what she still had to do. She would, we were 4 or 5 times a day, we'd sort of communicate with each other. And every night without fail, she would ring me or text me and say good night, when she got in.
Mm-hmm.
So we had that, and that wonderful understanding. She was away at university when she was killed, but she'd had sort of a bit prior to that. She'd had a really difficult teenage years. She started at high school when she was 11, and everything was great. And then by the end of the year 8, so she would have been 12, going into 13, her mental health started to decline. And she became very unwell. She was diagnosed with depression and anxiety, and it all centered around school. She started self-harming. She had an eating disorder. She had a very, very difficult time.
Mm-hmm.
It was funny, when she was about 15, we both individually had done a bit of Googling, and we both came to the same conclusion that she probably had borderline personality disorder. But the psychiatrist was very reluctant to give her a label because she said it wouldn't be useful. But Libby was the type of person that she wanted to know. If she knew, then she knew what she was dealing with,
Mm-hmm.
She got really great. They do their exams called their GCSEs here in England, and she got really good exam results when she was sort of 15 going into 16. But she decided to leave the school she was at, and she went on to a sixth form college where she did her A-levels, but her mental health was really poor then. So her A-levels, which are the grades that you need to get into university, weren't the best. So she'd always wanted to go to university, but, I'd sort of said to her, well, I'm happy for you to go and I want you to experience it, but, not with your mental health being the way it is. You're not going to enjoy it and I'm going to worry. And her grades weren't great. So she had to look at different universities, and she took a gap year and worked really hard on her mental health. That year she was, oh God, that girl fought, that woman fought for everything. She increased the hours at the job she had. She spent more time with us as a family. She spent more time with her boyfriend. And, she got herself in a better place to go to university.
Good.
So, yeah, she went off to uni. She had the first year at uni. I remember the day we dropped her off, and oh my goodness, I cried and cried and cried. And she ran in. She said, look, I'm taking the last. I don't want you to come up to the flat to say goodbye. I just want you to go. So I got in the car and I was sobbing. And then she rang and I said to Russell, oh my goodness, she's changed her mind. She needs to come home. So I picked up the phone. I said, yes. She went, Mum, I'm just saying I've met 2 lads and we're off down the pub. And I thought, oh, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. So yeah, she just had a really great first year. I mean, she came home frequently. The university she went to is about 200 miles away from us. So I would go up and pick her up and then bring her home and take her back at the end of the weekend. Yes, and then she got to the second year. She moved into this student house with 3 other girls. And part of Libby's mental health condition was she liked everything to be nice and orderly and neat. So she had all on a cleaning rota. That house was like, it looked like a show home, and they all did it. They all did what Libby said, which was quite amazing. Yeah, and then I was at work. I work on the maternity ward at our local hospital, and I was on 3 nights. On the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I was working nights. And on the Thursday, I was asleep and my phone buzzed, and it was a picture. Libby had sent me a picture of herself, and she looked really miserable. And I thought, oh, I better give you a ring and see if you're okay. But it was about 12:30, and I had to get up at 2:30 to go and pick the little ones up from school. And I was working a night shift. So I thought, you know what, I'm not going to speak to you now, because we very frequently spoke to each other about 3 o'clock in the morning when I was on a night shift. I'll ring you later. And, and if you need to ring me, I knew she'd ring me.
Yeah.
So I went off, and it was on my mind, but it wasn't enough to make me ring her, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I went off, got the kids, got everybody ready. I went off to work at 7:30, was doing my job like I do, doing my baby observations, coming back, doing all this. And then I looked at my phone, and it was 9 minutes past 1 in the morning. And I always find it really strange how, parents who have lost children, I think especially mums, the details make a difference. It wasn't 10 past 9. It wasn't 10 minutes past 1. It was 9 minutes past 1 when I looked at my phone. I had a missed call from one of Libby's friends. So I wasn't overly worried because Libby frequently phoned me from somebody else's phone.
Yeah.
So I rang Millie and I said, hello, darling, it's only me. I said, is everything all right? I said, did Libby try and call me? And she said, no, it was me. And I said, oh, is everything okay? And she said, no, Lisa, we can't find Libby. I was like, well, what do you mean you can't find Libby? And she went on to tell me that, they'd been out for the evening and Libby had had a bit too much to drink and hadn't got into a nightclub. So they had put her in a taxi on her own back to and sent her back to the house.
Uh-huh.
And that was at 11:30 in the evening. And Libby was supposed to ring them to say that she'd got home, but they hadn't heard from her. And it was only a 7-minute drive by car back from the nightclub to Libby's house. So they called the house at sort of just after about midnight. They called the house and there was another housemate in, and she said, no, Libby's not here. And they were ringing Libby's phone and Libby wasn't answering because Libby didn't take her phone out that night. So they said, oh, we're leaving the nightclub and we're going to go and see if we can find her. So I just said to them, well, she's probably gone for, to get some food, or maybe gone to another friend's house, or, maybe she's gone to another club. But I said, just, get back home and ring me. You go back to the house and give me a ring when you get back to the house. And I put the phone down and my colleague said to me, are you okay? And I just said, no, I'm not. I said, they can't find Libby and I think she's dead. I just knew.
Wow.
I just had the feeling. It wasn't a feeling, it was a knowing. It was like,
Yeah.
I just knew. I couldn't connect to her. And Libby and I always had a very strong spiritual connection as well. I mean, 6 months previously, she'd actually broken her thumb when she was up at university, and I was sitting down on a Saturday night at home and I kept saying to her, my thumb really hurts, my thumb really hurts. And the next morning she rang me. She said, oh, Mum, I think I've broken my thumb. So I put the phone on loudspeaker and I said, say that again so Dad can hear it. And she went, I think I've broken my thumb. I bent it backwards. And he said, it didn't happen about 9 o'clock last night, did it? And she went, yeah. And he went, oh my goodness, your mother felt that. So we had that sort of connection.
That's so crazy, isn't it?
I don't have it with my other 3 children. I mean, I love them as much as I love them all equally. I had something with Libby. There was something different. I think I could say she was my person, and I was hers.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had this knowing that she just wasn't there. I couldn't feel her. So I continued to do my job. It was very strange because I split into what I call my Libby world. So I and it's still now, my Libby world runs with my normal world. They run together. Don't very often cross over. I was doing my observations and my bloods and stuff on the babies, and then I was on the phone to taxi companies trying to find out if I could trace the taxi driver that had dropped her off. I was phoning hospitals. My colleagues were phoning places to see if we could track her down. And then just before 3 a.m, so Libby had been missing for 2.5, 3 hours by that point, I said to the girls, I think you ought to ring the police because Libby hasn't called me and this is just not. So they rang the police and the police were absolutely amazing. They took it really seriously. And by the morning, she had been listed as a high-risk missing person.
Wow. Well,
it was incredible.
Because sometimes they don't.
I don't know. And what had happened was that night, Libby hadn't wanted to go out, but the girls had persuaded her to go out to the club. So she had a drink when she was getting ready. She was wearing a short skirt and a T-shirt and a leather jacket with ankle socks and trainers. That's what she was wearing. And then after they got ready, they walked on to another house where they had a pre-party where Libby drank another bottle of wine. But it was incredibly cold. It had been snowing up in Hull. It was the 31st of January. It had been snowing all week, and they estimated that the temperature would have been about -2. But with the wind chill coming off the North Sea, it would have felt more like -7. And Libby wasn't dressed for the weather.
Right.
So we went to the pre-party. And then they walked about half an hour, 40 minutes onto the club. And the guys that she was with said that they noticed that she seemed a bit more intoxicated than any of the others, but she was fine. She was upright. She was doing okay. And of course, when they got to the door of the doorman said, no, you're not coming in. You're too drunk. So they put her in a taxi and sent her home. But Libby didn't, when the taxi driver. So when we spoke to the police took it so seriously. They said, because it's out of character for her. She wouldn't ever leave me.
Yeah.
Knowing where she was.
Right.
She was a lone female. She'd been drinking and it was freezing cold. It was so cold up there that night. So, she kind of was ticking a lot of boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were out looking for her. And so that whole night I was, liaising with the police and with her friends and with the university security and still trying to do my bit from, all the hundreds of miles away to see if I could find her. But I carried on working all night. You just kind of carry on.
You don't know, right?
Yeah. And then it got to my boss came in the morning, it was 8 o'clock, and she said to me, "Oh, how was your night?" And I said, "Not great." And I told her what had happened. And, typical, British National Health Service, she was like, "Well, you're going nowhere until you've had a cup of tea and slice of toast, because, of course, that fixes everything." I went in and had a cup of tea and with my boss, and I wasn't crying, but I just felt dead inside.
Yeah.
Like a part of me died. It was horrible. And it had started snowing down here as well at that point. She said to me, "Just go home and drive home and ring me when you get back home to let me know you're safe." As I left that building, I didn't go back for the next 16 months.
Yeah.
I didn't go back to work for 16 months. But when I got in the car to drive home, I thought, "Oh my goodness, I need to ring Russell and the kids and tell them what's happened," because I'd known about this since, midnight, well, 1 o'clock in the morning, and it was now 8 o'clock, and I hadn't called Russell.
Yeah.
Russell had taken it was a Friday, and Russell had taken the weekend off of work because it was his birthday on the Monday. So he was having a long weekend off. And the children's schools were closed because of the snow, so they were all at home. So I rang Russ from the car and I just said, "I think we've got a problem." And I told him what happened. And he said exactly the same as me. "She's probably gone to somebody's house. She's probably sleeping it off." And I just said, no, and he said to me, "Look, just drive safely, get home.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about it when you get home." And he told me not that long ago, he said, "I knew when you came through the door, the look on your face, I knew it was really serious." He said, "I've never seen you look so scared." So I knew she had a lecture on that Friday at 2 o'clock, and Libby was never late for lectures. She always turned up to her lecture. So I called my parents and got my parents on, red alert to come and look after the children, because I said to Russell, if she doesn't turn up at the lecture, then we'll have to go up to Hull and go and look for her. And the university rang me at 2:05 to say she hadn't turned up to the lecture. So my parents came round and Russ and I got in the car, drove up to Hull. It was a horrible journey. I was crying, he was crying, I was tired, you're kind of driving into the unknown. I didn't know what we were going to go and find, or, it was horrendous. And that journey usually took about 3.5, maybe 4 hours, and it took us 5.5 hours because of the weather.
Right.
And we drove past the Humber estuary. It's a big body of water. And I just said to Russell, "She's in that water." And he said to me, "Don't be silly." I said, "I'm not being silly. She's in that water." And I don't know where it came from. We drove past it and I felt this, that's where she is. Really weird.
Wow.
We got to the police station and there was a police officer waiting for us, and we went in, and, she was so lovely. She'd brought us tea and coffee, and she bought some snacks for us because she said, "I don't suspect you've eaten or anything." And we spent a few hours at the police station answering more questions and what have you. We then went back to Libby's house because, the police had organised a hotel for us to stay in overnight. So we went to Libby's house just to, sort of have a look around her room, and I don't know. We just went there, and then we went out looking for her with her friends from her house. And the next thing I knew, there was a police car pulling up beside us, and he said, "What are you doing?" And we said, "Well, we're looking for Libby." And he said, "And what are you going to do if you find her?" She'd been missing for 24 hours at this point. He said, "Please let us do our job. Please go to the hotel." And that kind of really underlined how serious it was, because, yeah. And we went up to the hotel, and then we went back to the police station. My best friend and her husband came up that next morning, on the Saturday morning, and stayed with us, for 4 or 5 days. The university gave us a house to live in, so we weren't living in a hotel room. We spent the first 4 days in the police station. We didn't really leave the police station. We were put in touch with the major crime team, and we had our senior investigating officer on the case and our family liaison officer, and they were great. I really got on well with our liaison officer. And there was you could not move in the streets there was everybody looking for Libby. They pulled police recruits off of their training programs. We had the Coast Guard, we had the army, there was neighbouring police forces looking for her. I mean, there were hundreds of people looking for her, and there was just nothing. She'd vanished. Obviously, we were worried about the other children at home, and then on the Monday, 2 more friends brought the 2 younger ones up to Hull to be with us because, they were missing, Ross and I as well, and we needed them there as well, really. And yeah, I mean, the police kept us informed of everything, but there was she just vanished. And I was very aware that they were searching a big area of playing fields called Oak Road Playing Field. And they'd cut all the vegetation down and what have you. And I didn't really ask why. I just thought the police know what they're doing, and I really trusted them.
Mm-hmm.
On the Tuesday, they asked us to look at some CCTV to see if we thought it was Libby. And I knew straight away that it was Libby. And the CCTV showed somebody putting someone in a car. And I knew it was Libby.
Yeah.
And again, I didn't think to ask any more. I just thought, okay, well, we've got an idea of where she was. The police know something. That's really good. And then on the Wednesday, so 6 days after she'd gone missing, our liaison officer came round to tell us that they were arresting somebody in connection with her disappearance. He was a 24-year-old local man. They'd found him through tracing him on CCTV because they'd managed to find Libby they'd managed to find the taxi driver who dropped her off. So they were able to track Libby through his taxi.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, they arrested him and he sort of said, oh no, he didn't have anything to do with it and all of that. But his story changed several times over the next. They got an extension of 96 hours to talk to him. And his story changed several times. And eventually he ended up saying, oh yeah, I think I did pick her up, but I dropped her off. The last time I saw her, she was wandering away. But then when they arrested him, they obviously take his DNA and they put the DNA through the police national database. And I think it was on the Saturday. So she'd been missing just over a week. Sam, our liaison officer, came to the house to tell us that the DNA of the man that they'd arrested in connection with her disappearance matched the DNA of an unknown perpetrator of several non-contact sex offences that had happened in the student area of Hull over the previous 18 months.
Oh.
So you kind of think, okay, she's been picked up by a sexual predator
Mm-hmm.
and we can't find her. And you kind of, you do.
Yeah.
So because he wasn't answering any questions on Libby, but he was obviously was a match for this, the other sex offences, they actually then arrested and charged him with those offences, which meant he didn't get out of custody from when he was arrested for Libby. And they were still looking for her and he was still under investigation for her. But it meant that he couldn't go out and hurt anybody else.
Yeah.
So that was a good thing. So we stayed up there for another 2 weeks. There was still no sign of her. But the police had said, that they'd focused their search on Oak Road Playing Field. And at the bottom of Oak Road Playing Field was a river called the River Hull. And they said, we have to consider the fact that she may well have gone in the river, either been put in the river, fallen in the river, or put herself in the river. Now, I knew she would never put herself in the river.
Right.
Libby had 4 suicide attempts in her teens, and we talked very openly about suicide and about her dying, and I knew how she would do it. But the thing I also knew is that she would never leave me not knowing. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was horrendous. And then it was the 13th of February, the village where we live were having a vigil for her. So we came home for the vigil. We stayed here for a couple of days because I wanted to say thank you to everybody because,
Mm-hmm.
we had that many people reaching out to us. I mean, it was incredible. The community were amazing. And they'd looked after my mum and dad, they'd fed my mum and dad, because mum and dad were here with the kids, and they were really, really kind. And then we went back up to Hull. We stayed there again for another couple of weeks and came back. And we came back, it's about a month. We came back home and the house was crazy. There was, I had friends coming in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd talk about it, I'd tell the story, and then they'd go home, and then at lunchtime there'd be another friend come in and I'd do the whole thing all over again.
Yeah.
And then the evening somebody else would come in and I'd do it all over again. So I kept doing this, this repetitive talking. And then it was on day 48, so nearly 7 weeks after she'd gone missing, I had a phone call from Sam to say that a body had been spotted in the Humber estuary, which was the water that I originally said that she was in. She said, it's a female. And I said, do you think it's Libby? And she said, there aren't any other females missing. So she said, I'm going down there now. But she said, obviously, there's a big media presence because this was all over the national news and everything.
Mm-hmm.
She said, I'll give you a ring as soon as I know. And she rang me an hour later to say it was Libby. And yeah, she'd been found. And I remember I passed the phone to Russell because I couldn't breathe. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And I sat on the sofa and he put the phone down and I said, does that mean she's dead? And he said, yes, it means she's dead. And it was really weird because the Humber estuary goes into the North Sea and it's a massive body of water. It's huge. And the police have since said they never expected to find her. If you go into the Humber, you very rarely get found. And she was on an outgoing tide, and they found her. So I was elated that she'd come home.
Yeah.
But obviously hadn't come home how I wanted her to come home.
Right.
And then I had the whole new life that I didn't want.
Yeah.
They did her post-mortem and I was, well, I'm coming up. I need to come to the post-mortem. And they're like, you don't come to a post-mortem. And I'm like, she's my child. I need to be there. And they're like, no, you can't come into a post-mortem. But one of the police officers, a female police officer, I'll never forget her kindness. She went in and she sat with Libby throughout the post-mortem. And she told her what was going on because I just wanted there to be a female with her and somebody that could tell her what was happening. Because they're very male-dominated environments. And they did the post-mortem and they didn't find any cause of death because of the decomposition of her body. But what they did find is that she'd held on to semen that matched the man they'd arrested, and matched his DNA. And she'd held on to that semen for 48 days in moving water, which proved that he had raped her. That was incredible. I was so proud of her for doing that because it's very rare. Yeah, and she'd held on to it.
Yeah.
And he had said that in an interview that she was drunk. And obviously in England, if you are drunk, you cannot give consent for sex. So it is rape.
Mm-hmm.
It was endless. We went up and I saw her about a week after she'd been recovered. I was able to go and see her. I had to fight for that because they didn't want me to. But I was like, no, this is my baby. I need to see her. It wasn't about seeing her. It was about being with her again.
Yeah.
And Libby had lost all her hair in the water. And she had really long, thick, dark hair. And she'd lost all of her hair. And when I went to see her, she didn't look like she used to look. But what she did have was that lovely round head that she had when she was born. And I put my hands on her head and it felt just like it did, 21 years earlier when she'd been born. And it was so special. And I was so grateful for being able to see her and to say to her, thank you for coming back and for not leaving me, not knowing what had happened. And I was able to tell her how proud I was of her and how much I loved her. And I told her, you'll be safe now. Nobody will ever hurt you again because you're home, you're back with Mummy and Daddy now. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that was at the end of March. I saw her, I think, on the 27th of March. The police were still really keen to try and find out how she died. So she had loads of tests and parts of her body went all over the country to see if they could find what the cause of death, but they weren't able to. And we finally got her body home at the end of September. Beginning of September. So she'd been dead 8 months when we got her home.
Wow.
Such a long time.
So long. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, and she came home and actually her funeral was 6 years ago today.
Really?
And I didn't even because the funeral date is not something that I focus on.
Yeah, right.
And when I told my daughter about I was doing this and she went, oh, that'd be right. And I said, what? She said, well, you're telling me Libby hasn't had a hand in this? I said, what? She said, Mum, it's her funeral day. It's the 3rd of October. And I went, oh my goodness, I hadn't even thought about it. So yeah, so I just think it's meant.
It's amazing to me how these dates happen and oftentimes not. It's just what I kind of feel like is the right time and I don't even know the significance of it.
Well, I didn't even put.
It's just not. No, and you didn't think of it either. I'm so glad your daughter did. Wow.
Yeah, so we had her funeral was, I say, 6 years ago today. He was arrested just after her funeral. He was in prison already by that point for the other offences.
Mm-hmm.
But he was arrested for Libby's rape and murder on the 24th of October because the police let her go to her funeral as Libby, not as Libby, the rape and murder victim.
Yeah.
So he was arrested and charged with her rape and murder. And we didn't go to court until, because we had COVID, it was January 2021. So we had her 2nd anniversary in court. So it was a long time.
Yeah. Wow.
And we were in court for about 5 weeks. And that was tough. That was tough.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
eventually he was found guilty of her rape and murder, and he was sentenced to life with a minimum of 27 years. But he was only 24 when he killed her, so he'll be eligible for parole when he's 51. I mean, that's not enough, is it?
No, it's not.
But she got, and I'm so proud of her, because she got an incredibly dangerous man off of the streets. She stopped him. She stopped him doing it to anybody else. Because we know, again, the whole case, the police's case, focused on the CCTV. And we know that he was picked up on CCTV 2 hours after he went home and had a bath after disposing of Libby's body. We know he logged onto a pornography site. He then got back in the car and went out looking for a second victim. And he spotted a lone female, and she went into a house. So he crossed the road and masturbated on a street corner in full view of a CCTV camera. And that was less than 2 hours after having raped and killed my daughter.
Oh.
So he was a serious sexual predator, and Libby got him off the streets.
Yeah, she did.
I'm so proud of her.
Yeah.
So proud of her. But
wow.
I'd rather she'd won a big prize for something. But
yeah, right.
I'll take this.
Right.
Yeah. So it was a really, and of course the media were all over it. And
yeah.
It was really tough. It was tough.
I'm sure.
But yeah.
So talk about your grief journey and what that's been like.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's been really there's a very public side to it too.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for that first 7 weeks I was just numb.
Yeah.
Completely numb, but very aware that she had died.
Yeah.
I was aware from the minute I was told. So by the time she was found and they confirmed that she was dead, that kind of shock had almost worn off.
Yeah.
Because I was always expecting it. So very much for me, the first year, I had 16 months off of work, and I was talking about it constantly, just kept talking and talking and talking.
Mm-hmm.
My friends were amazing, but they can only do so much. So I remember it was the beginning of May, and I was desperate to speak to other mums who'd lost children, and I didn't know where to go. And I just sat Googling, and the Compassionate Friends came up, and there's a group just about 5 miles away from where I live. So I went to that, and there I found my tribe. I found my people.
Yeah.
And another really weird thing? Another lady called Laura started the same day as me. And we were chatting, and we worked out that we live about half a mile away from each other. So we started doing school runs together. Runs to the meetings together. And we went every week, every month. And it was only about a year later we were talking, and we discovered that Libby and her son James had a mutual friend who used to have lots of parties. So Libby and James would have known each other in life.
Wow. Oh, my word.
And Laura and I start the same group on the same day, and our children have, and James died 6 weeks before Libby.
Wow.
Yeah. So I have lots of friends there, but I have 3, Laura, Jane and Lindsay. They're like my 3 really close friends, and we go on holiday together now, and we have weekends together. It's, really special, and we all lost children around about the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, definitely for me, talking to other bereaved parents is really helpful. Mm-hmm. Really, really helpful. And if I cry, I cry, and if I don't, I don't. I don't try and hide it. I don't try and hold it in. And I'm very much like that anyway. I am what I am.
Yeah.
My friends were so supportive. My husband was amazing. My children were amazing. I feel incredibly guilty about my children.
Yeah.
My living children, because I thought at the time that I was really present. I was there. But I wasn't. They lost their mum for 2 years. Because all I could do was talk about what had happened.
Yeah. My
Beth, she was 17 when Libby died. And our relationship really did suffer. But we're now really good again.
Oh, good.
We're able to talk about things, and the children now can bring Libby up in conversation, whereas before, if I talked about her, they left the room. But I think my grief journey has taught me that there are 5 of us living in our house, and 5 of us grieve in 5 different ways, and nobody is right and nobody is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And we all just have to. Whereas I very much thought, unless they were laying on the floor screaming and crying like I was, that they didn't love her as much as I loved her. So I was only, and that's so wrong, but that's where I was. I had lots of therapy. I'm still in therapy, and it helps, and I just try now and focus. I very early on, within a matter of weeks, decided that I had lost one of my foremost precious things in my life, and the person that took her wasn't going to take anything away from me. So I remember having a conversation with Russell saying, this will not break us. And actually I think we are so...
Those are the words that Eric said to me on the night Andy died.
Yeah.
This will not break us.
It will not break us. I will not allow it to break us.
Yeah.
It's been hard. I'm not sure it's not easy, but I didn't want, probably the same as maybe you felt with Andy, I didn't want Libby to feel guilty for me and her dad having a bad time.
Yeah.
Because she always felt guilty about everything. And I didn't want any bad things to happen because of what happened to her. So, yeah, we worked really hard on our marriage, and we've been married 30 years next year, and we're in a really good place. I mean, yeah. And I decided again very early on that I wasn't going to hate the man that killed her. I don't like him. I don't like him. I don't want anything to do with him. But if I started to hate him, I don't do anger very well.
I know.
I'm not great with anger.
I don't either.
So I thought, if I get angry, it's taking all that energy, and all of that energy I could be focusing on Libby and my other children. So I chose to not be angry. I'm not angry. I don't like what happened.
Yeah.
But I don't need to take that into my life because it's hard enough.
Yeah, I felt like I was fully able to let go of the anger. Really, I would say about that time in court when I really was able to kind of see her and confront her more. And I feel like I couldn't really start. I don't think I really started grieving until after the court stuff was done. And that's funny because you said it was 2 years that they lost their mom, and then mom, I should say mom, and that it was 2-year anniversary that you were in court, right? So that it really was the same for you, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was all, when the court had finished and I came back home and this was life. Because everyone kept telling me the second year is really hard. The second year is really hard. But I did the first year, and the second year we were in court.
Yeah.
And I think then I just thought, this is it now. This is life. And I had to, again, you have to make decisions, don't you? Decisions you don't want to make, but where do I need to go with this? And
I just think it's weird how that court hangs over.
That 2 year, isn't it?
And it gets you kind of stuck.
Yes, very much so.
I mean, I recently spoke to another man, and they're still waiting for their day in court. And we talked about that. I said, I feel like I didn't really get to start until I had that day. And he said, I just really want that day. I want that day, that court day to come, because he feels like it will be, a change, that he'll be able to start that grieving process a little bit more, even though he's far into it, right? You're just kind of, I don't know. There's something about that when that's undone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we still don't know how Libby had died, or
Right.
how Libby died. We don't know. I mean, we're left with strangulation and/or suffocation as the likely cause.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, because I didn't know, that I would never get over it, never. But I've kind of reconciled myself to not knowing, because that's what got me stuck in my grief.
Right.
But once I kind of thought, what difference does it make? It doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
Just by me knowing, she's not going to come home, is she? She's not going to say, oh, now I'm going to come back to life and everything's going to be fine again. So I had to make a lot of conscious decisions, which is really hard when you've got grief brain.
Yeah.
It's still not back to normal. Menopause and grief brain really are not the thing.
Not a great combo. No, I've got that too. Yeah.
They're really not. No. They're quite convenient excuses at times, but they're not great. And I think it's just an ongoing process. Every day I learn something new, or kind of, so I think my grief process is ever evolving, isn't it? And I do think you're right. You're having your day in court. You're in limbo, aren't you?
Yeah. It's really weird.
It is really weird. It is really.
And I think it's hard to explain to people. And I don't even understand it. I don't understand how that, having that made a change, but it did make a change.
Yeah. I think for me, it felt very much like I promised her that I would find out as much as I could about what had happened to her. And I knew the majority of people that Libby knew, I knew. And I didn't know anything about the man that had taken her life. And I made a promise to her that I would be there and find out, and he would be punished for what she did, for what he did.
Mm-hmm.
And once it was all over, I did feel like I'd done as much as I possibly could do.
Yeah.
And we sat through that court process for 5 weeks, and it was horrendous having to listen to all the things we had to listen to.
Oh, I'm sure.
But yeah, but we were well supported by the police and friends and family. So, we were very fortunate in such a horrible situation.
Yeah. We'll talk about these last years now and your grief journey and kind of what you've been doing.
Yes. So after Libby had died and after the court case and everything, I just thought, she can't just die, because that makes it all, well, she was worth way more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And it became really clear to me from talking to young people and my friends and other women that the non-contact sexual offence side of it, people didn't report those offences because it was something that women are conditioned to, especially, I don't know what it's like in the States, but over here, a man exposes himself to you and you just kind of think, oh, really? And we're almost, as women, conditioned to accept it. But it's not normal behaviour and it's not okay. So I started going into schools and talking to sort of 16, 17 and 18-year-olds about non-contact sexual offences, and saying to them, if you are a victim, you absolutely have to report it. The police are not going to go out and catch that man that night. That's not going to happen. But what they've got is the data, and we all know how police love to work with data. And then I thought, well, it's okay telling them, but now I've got to go and tell the police. So I started going into police forces, and I do a lot of work with the Metropolitan Police in London, and talking to them about non-contact offences and saying to them, these are red flag offences. They're gateway crimes. We know that the man that killed Libby started off with quite so-called lower level sex offences and within 18 months had gone to rape and murder. And I did some work with a criminologist, and she said, we can't say that all non-contact sexual offenders will go on to become rapist murderers, but we can say that all stranger rapist murderers started off with non-contact sexual offence.
Right.
So to me, it seemed really obvious. It's kind of run from there. And so I now work with lots of different police forces. I'm up the other end of the country tomorrow, next week, talking to another police force. And Thames Valley Police, who is my local police force, I worked with them and we devised a programme called It Does Matter, and it's all around non-contact sexual offences, and we're doing it in Libby's name. I've worked with the College of Policing, which is the main teaching body for the police over here, and we've got Libby's lesson on there. It's like an e-learning package that the police do, and there's, I can't remember, I don't know the numbers, but in 3 months, 51,000 police officers had accessed that learning package, and it's non-mandatory. So, but a lot of police forces are now making it mandatory, so they have to access it, so things are changing.
Yeah.
Really made a difference to me because I feel I'm doing something positive for her.
Right. That's beautiful.
And saving other women, and it's one of those things, we will never know how many women we save.
No.
But if we don't do anything, we won't save anyone.
Right.
Just going, and I talk to the school kids and talk to them about it and say, it's, and I talk to the boys as well and say to them, this is, if you are going to do this, you will get a criminal record. This is not normal behaviour, and we're not going to put up with it. And so last 2 months ago, Russ and I set up a company called Libby's Legacy. So because I can then, my plan is to ease off on my day job and do more on Libby work. And I've got lots of plans in my mind, and I want to get the law changed in England. That means that if you kill someone, that you spend the rest of your life in prison, because you don't get second chances when you've taken someone's life. Yeah. But 27 years for killing someone, and Libby was 21. She's got a whole life ahead of her. So I want to get Libby's law or the law changed. I want to call it Libby's law, but that's a big piece of work that I need a bit of time to think about.
Right.
But so I just try and do as much as I can, sort of in the violence against women and girls area, and raise awareness and tell people Libby's story.
Well, and I asked you when we first came on with each other, I said, where are you at? Because I could tell, because I'm in Andy's room and I do all of my podcast stuff from Andy's room. And
Yeah.
you are in Libby's room.
I'm in Libby's room, yeah, which is now my office.
Right.
Libby is in a gift bag on her bed because we had her cremated. And Libby and I had talked about her death because I knew, and actually I was listening to somebody today, I can't remember who it was, one of your podcasts this morning, and the daughter had said, Mum, I can't bear the thought of living without you. And Libby used to say the same. She said to me when she was 4, we were at my grandmother's funeral, and she said to me, Mummy, when I die, will you wear a black dress to my funeral? And I said, no, darling, mummies don't come to their children's funerals. You'll come to mine. No, Mummy, she said, you come to my funeral and I want you to wear a black dress. So I was like, yeah, okay.
She said that really when she was
She said
4?
that it was November and she was 4 in the January because I was really heavily pregnant with Beth and she was sitting on my bump. And she was just really clear about it.
Yeah.
And we talked, because I say she had 4 suicide attempts, and we talked openly about her death. And she said to me, Mum, I can't live without you, so I have to die before you. And I was like, and I wanted to say, but you're not going to. But I had always had a feeling.
Yeah.
It's really, really weird. I just knew she wouldn't make. She said to me she'd never make 26, and she was 21 when she died. So I knew what she wanted at her funeral because we had talked about it. So we gave her the biggest funeral. To me, it was her wedding day. It was just the best funeral. And I knew that she'd want to come home and she wanted to be cremated. So I went to pick her up from the funeral home, and they gave her to me in a box, and it's in like a navy blue gift bag. So I brought her home, and she's on the bed, and I've decorated her gift bag. She's got a little Jack skeleton on it, and her favourite teddy sits in it, and I bring her out and we chat together. We watch telly together, which my children are like, really? And I'm like, but it's what I need to do.
Yes. And if it helps you, it helps you. Yeah.
I mean, they think I'm mad. I don't mind. But when I'm in a room, I feel very connected to her, and I feel her energy around me, and she sends me lots of, I have so many signs, and I'm still very spiritually connected to her, and, she is incredible. And yeah, I just feel she's not here physically. I can't see her, but she's still here. So, and she's very present in our lives, and it's lovely.
Yeah, I was just talking to my therapist about that yesterday, about kind of signs, and she said she calls them grief phenomena, that you just have this, and who knows how they happen, but they just do. They just do. They make us feel better, and then what's the harm in that, right?
What's the harm in that?
Right.
I mean, I remember, because we had 2 funerals for Libby. We had a church service, and I'm not churchy. My husband's not. We're not religious. Libby was actually doing a philosophy and religious studies degree. So
really,
yeah, she wasn't religious, or we don't come from a religious family, but she was absolutely fascinated with religion, and she wanted to find out as much as she could. I mean, she always said to me, Mum, you can't say that God is real, and you can't say that God isn't real. So what? You can't. So we used to have these big, deep conversations, and I'm like, oh, you're confusing me, because she was very good with her words. So I don't have a religious side to me, but my parents really wanted a religious ceremony. So we did have a big church funeral, and then we went onto the crematorium where we had just the service for Libby when she was cremated. But I remember the vicar coming round, and it was a female vicar, and she was absolutely lovely. And I was talking about signs, and spirituality, and she said to me, well, you do know that once she's gone home to Jesus, that will stop, because she'll be at home. And I just thought, maybe that's why I'm not so into it. I just thought, do you know what? If that's her belief, that's great, but it's not my belief.
I know.
And if it helps you, it helps you. But, but Livy's signs they're here all the time. And that's for fact, I went up to Hull on Monday this week. And they unveiled a garden of light, and they've got a beautiful sculpted tree with little sort of leaves on it, where they've had students and staff members who are no longer with us. They've had their names written on them. And of course, in typical Libby fashion, hers is right at the end. It's very obvious and what have you. But I was also supposed to be having a reading with a medium, with myself and 2 of my compassionate friends' mums. So I just sort of said, I don't know which to do. And then my son said, can I come to Hull with you? And I said, yes, of course you can. So that made the decision we'd go up there. So then Laura rings me on the way back and sends me the recording. So I was listening to it. And obviously Libby had come through on this reading. And so Laura's saying, because the lady's saying, oh, I've got this girl, and they've worked out it was Libby. And then she said, it's a connection to America. There's an American connection. I've got New York. And Laura's going, no, don't know. And I'm screaming at my phone. I'm like, her real name is Liberty. The Statue of Liberty. Because her name is Liberty Anna. And this woman's going, no, there's a connection to New York. And I'm like, Laura, Liberty. She's like, when I spoke to her, she went, oh, I didn't even think of that. So yeah, I believe that wherever they are, whether they're in heaven or wherever they are, they connect with us all the time, and they never truly leave us. And it's, we're their mums. Of course, they're not going to leave us.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your Libby with us. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you for letting you talk about her. It was lovely.
Absolutely.
Lovely to see Andy's bedroom.
Yep, and now you got to see Andy's bedroom.
Yeah. So has Andy been gone 6.5 years too? 7 years, is he?
7.5, yeah.
7.5, yeah. So just a bit behind us because we're 7 in February. So.
Oh, yeah.
They're probably up there.
Probably talking right now.
Yeah, look at our mums.
All right, thank you.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much for having me on. And I love your podcast, and I look forward to all the new ones that come out. It's all, I love listening to them. They're really helpful. You're doing an amazing job.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you found this helpful and would like to support the podcast, please leave a 5-star rating and comment. To help financially, you can type Andy's Mom, one word, to the number 53555. This provides a link to GiveButter, which allows donations through PayPal, Venmo, Apple Pay, or credit cards. GiveButter will provide a receipt of your tax-deductible donation, or you can visit the donation page at andysmom.com/donate. Always Andy's Mom is a registered 501c3 and can receive donations through Thrivent Financial and Benevity. Marcy loves hearing from listeners. Please feel free to reach out to her via email at marcy@andysmom.com or on the Instagram or Facebook Always Andy's Mom accounts. Sign up for the email list to get weekly episode links as well as pictures of Marcy's guests and their children. Together, let's work to inspire hope, one day at a time.